We're back. I'm always happy to say welcome to our next guest. His name is Richard Fisher. He is a senior fellow with the International Assessment and Strategy Center, and by my lights, really the country's preeminent authority on the military capabilities of the Chinese Communist Party. We talk on this program a lot about its unrestricted warfare against the United States and what that entails, or has in particular in the past couple of decades, in terms of non kinetic warfare, economic warfare, political warfare, influence operations, espionage, subversion, and on and on. But what Rick has kept his eyes squarely on is the ball, namely what happens as China is able to complement all of those other threat vectors with the capability to wage old fashioned military warfare against us, possibly involving some exotic new capabilities. We always appreciate the chance to catch up with him. And Rick, welcome back to Securing America.
Thank you for having me again, Frank.
There have been a couple of developments that I wanted in particular to call our audience's attention to, Rick. The extent and the speed with which this military buildup is taking place in China is well, not just breathtaking, it is horrifying. I think it's fair to say. There have been a number of developments in the missile domain that are increasing the power projection capacity of the Chinese. Give us a sense of the latest on that front, if you would.
Certainly. On about April 20th, in videos, two videos released on the Chinese internet, apparently timed for the 73rd anniversary of the People's Liberation Army Navy, but also pretty well timed to try to counter criticism of the Chinese Navy that has emerged as it is so dependent on Russian technology, an understanding that became pretty poignant in the wake of Ukraine's sinking of the large Russian cruiser Moskva on April 14. But Frank, what the Chinese did was reveal two new missiles. The most important was a surface to air missile sized missile that was fired from a Chinese cruiser. But what was unique about this missile is that it is most likely an anti ship ballistic missile. This is a missile that travels in a ballistic arc, comes down at a hypersonic speed, and is very difficult to shoot down, and it is also precision guided so that it can hit a moving target like a large ship. The Chinese have over 2,000 vertical launch systems spread amongst their cruisers, destroyers, and frigates. If they start arming those vertical launch systems with this new anti ship ballistic missile, that means that they can project this threat, a missile that could possibly fly 1,000 kilometers, maybe 1,500 kilometers, but putting those on ships that can be deployed all around the world gives the Chinese a very potent weapon to challenge the United States Navy on a global basis, not just in Asia from the Chinese mainland. Now, the second
And
missile is
Rick,
an
just
air
on this
launched.
question, Rick, is there a limitation on the kinds of ships that those things could be fired from? Could they be fired, for example, from cargo vessels, of which the Chinese have countless numbers?
The missile is certainly small enough to put into a standard metal cargo container, of which there are millions. And those cargo containers could be loaded on almost any ship, even a barge. You could probably find a container to sink them and just base them on the seabed and use
Wow.
them when we draw near. It's a very flexible weapon, and I expect that the Chinese will devise air launch platforms as well as submarine, ship, container platforms to launch them.
Talk about the second missile, if you would, quickly.
Okay. On the same day, the Chinese also revealed a much clearer picture of their air launched ballistic missile. This equips the Chinese Xi'an Aircraft Corporation H-6N bomber. It's a large. What the image revealed is that this missile is essentially developed from the Dongfeng 21C, most likely Dongfeng 21D, three-stage medium range anti-ship ballistic missile. And by air launching this missile from a bomber that can be refueled, the H-6N is the first version of that bomber that can be refueled. This means, Frank, as you mentioned earlier, uh, this bomber can deploy within range of Hawaii to launch that missile. So right now, we are facing the threat of another Pearl Harbor like strike that would probably accompany a larger Chinese move, let's say against Taiwan or against one of the major Japanese islands that contains China in the first island chain.
And the problem with these capabilities, Rick, as you know so well, but I think our audience has to have a sense of, is whether it's a ship launched missile or a an aircraft launched missile. Um, Unlike the missile fields in the mainland of China, which we would have some early warning were setting off an attack against us. These things may be essentially no notice, and the short flight times would be such that defense against them would be extremely challenging. Rick, we have to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to make sure that we have a sense from you as to how China sees its position at the moment vis a vis the United States, whether we are adequately and credibly deterring the use of these kinds of weapons against us, and if not, what we ought to be about right quick in order to maximize the deterrent force and capabilities that we clearly need. We'll talk about that and much more with Rick Fisher of the International Assessment and Strategy Center, one of our top hands on Chinese military capabilities, right after this.